Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild, and welcome back to another Once in a Wild Wednesday, where each and every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we bring the zoo to you virtually via social media, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the things. We try to be everywhere. We also have a TikTok as well, but I don't know how to simultaneously stream to TikTok right now. And on Instagram, hi family over there. We are going live today via my phone to be able to have a separate live stream. And we don't usually go live on Instagram every single time, but sometimes I do have the ability to do that. As you can see, I'm the only human on the show tonight. I hope you're not too disappointed. We are back to a one-woman show tonight, which is usually the norm. That's the same thing twice. And lately we've been having a lot of really fun special guests on the show, so I hope you don't mind me being the only human. And we are going to be meeting three very, very fun and special animal ambassadors on the show tonight, so I hope you're very excited. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Hello once again, my name is Amanda, and this is Once in a While, where we bring the zoo to you each and every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on social media. As you can see, you can also order and customize your own virtual animal encounter through Zoom, is what we usually do that through. And you can actually pick the animals that you would like to visit your Zoom experience. And we can also bring the zoo to you in person here in the San Antonio, Texas area. We can also go to Austin. We can go to New Braunfels. We can go all over the place. So just let me know if you're interested in an in-person or virtual animal experience, encounter, whatever you want to call it, where you can bring some fun animals to your classroom, your birthday party, whatever experience you would like, maybe just for fun, for animal therapy, photo opportunities, and learning opportunities of many kinds, as you might imagine. And that's what we specialize in. But if you are still social distancing or you don't live in our area, again, we can bring the zoo to you virtually as well. So we have lots of options for you. So don't hesitate to check out onceinawild.com and figure out what works best for you. And maybe we can work together sometime soon. That would be a lot of fun. That is the best way to help us out, is to basically purchase your own animal encounter of whatever type you would prefer and whatever animals you would prefer to meet. We do have birds, mammals, reptiles, creepy crawlies, and amphibians. So something for everybody, not just the creepy crawlies, but we also have cute and cuddlies and everything in between. So something for everyone. We do specialize in smaller, more mobile animals. As you might imagine, we don't have elephants and we don't have tigers yet anyway. We do specialize in mobile animals. So we do have a lot of those choices for you. So please let me know if you're interested, onceinawild.com, or our number is down below. And we always have links down below to check out as well if you are interested in more information. And also, if you're interested in just tipping or donating to our zoo, you can do so via the link down below, or go to onceinawild.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom and click the box that says sponsor our animals. You can sponsor them through Patreon, is another social media platform we just started. And you can also, of course, donate, tip, whatever you like through Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal as well. We also do have a PayPal. So if you need anything at all, feel free to comment down below and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know if you have any questions about the animals coming out. Let me know if you would like to help us out and you just don't know how to do that. We greatly appreciate that. Every little bit helps the animals to stay fed, to stay taken care of course. And we really appreciate your donations, tips, and sponsorships, and your animal encounter purchases as well. So that is who we are. We are specializing in, and we do specialize in education and basically teaching everybody that we meet with our animals about the animals and helping them learn to love the animals, respect animals of all kinds, and either leave them alone in the wild, right? If you happen to be a little bit nervous around, say, snakes, spiders, bugs, birds, whatever you're nervous around. Some people are afraid of turtles. I mean, you name it, some people are afraid of them. But that will help you to actually respect animals, even if you aren't comfortable with every animal species out there. That is definitely okay. Not everybody can be Amanda from Once in a While, right? So if you're uncomfortable with certain animals, we can help you overcome your fears and at least respect those animals that have a very, very good purpose and special place in the wild, and they need to be there as well, right? So we encourage you guys to leave those animals alone. If you happen to be nervous around them, that's the best thing you can do, is to walk away and leave them alone. And even if you really like snakes, frogs, birds, whatever animals you see in your own backyard and in the wild in general, we do encourage you guys to leave those animals alone, and they'll leave you alone too. That's the safest way to go about interacting with wild animals. But we specialize in handling all sorts of neat animals, and like I said, we can bring them out and show you guys in person or virtually, just like this. So the virtual animal encounters are conducted through Zoom, like I said. Those are a great option right now if you're social distancing, that's hard to say, or if you happen to live out of town, like I said already, we can bring the zoo to you, to anybody all over the world, as long as you have the internet. We just schedule it for you. And it looks just like this. We'll be in the purple void here, as my friend Clay calls it. You'll have a purple backdrop just like this, and you can actually customize which animals you would like to meet. And just let me know, and I'll help you out with that. So on our live stream, which is right now on Instagram and so forth, we're actually on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and more across the social media land. And tonight we're on those platforms though. And we are going to be showing you guys 3 animal species, or I'm going to be showing you guys 3 animal species that you guys are going to be learning about. One is actually an invertebrate, or a creepy crawly, if you will. One is going to be a reptile, and the last one is going to be a bird. So I hope you guys are really excited to learn about some animals. One of the animals is down below and already excited to meet you guys. And also, if you're not watching live, that's okay. I understand you have a life outside of Once in a Wild, and if you're just a smidgen as busy as I am, a fraction of as busy as I am, we will definitely understand that you're not watching live, or you don't always watch the live when it goes live. But you can rewatch the episodes on YouTube or Facebook very easily. I'm not sure about the other social media platforms, but a free way to help us out is actually to go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need some more subscribers on YouTube, and we need some more followers in general on all the social medias. So TikTok is one that we're looking to have more followers on, and like I said, YouTube is a big one that we need help with. So one free way that you can help us out is by sharing our YouTube page, or just subscribing, or liking the videos, commenting on the videos once they post again, or now is fine too. Ricky says soon we'll be on Twitch as well. Never in my life have I used Twitch, so I guess I'll learn. I'm also not a huge Twitter person, but I do love Instagram, and I do love TikTok the most. And Facebook is okay, I guess, but it helps us to go live. And a lot of our followers really prefer Facebook. So we try to be everywhere to make sure that's comfortable for you guys. No matter what platform you prefer, you can go over there and check us out. But you can rewatch the videos, you can share them with your friends and family, you can tag your friends and family that would love animals, and that helps us get the word out and teach everybody about these beautiful, wonderful animal ambassadors. And we've been a little bit busy lately, I can't complain, but also we're going into kind of a slow season. So the more you tell everybody about Once in a Wild, the more we can help animals out, of course, and teach kids of all ages, from very, very young to very, very young at heart, let's just say, about animals, and bring some joy into their life, and some smiles, and some good, positive things into their life, right? So that's the best thing you can do for us. If you don't have the ability to donate, it's okay. I understand completely. But like I said, a few free ways to help us out are tell everybody about us, tell everybody about these beautiful animals and how wonderful they are, and to leave them alone in the wild, and also to follow us on social media, like, comment, ring the bell, all the things. And that helps us out as well. So we understand. If you guys have any questions about the animals whatsoever as we bring them out and start talking about them, which I'll do in just a second, please do not be shy. You can go ahead and ask your questions, especially on YouTube and Facebook. And I can actually highlight them right here on the screen for everybody to see. Instagram's a little bit different. It's going to be separate. But all the other ones, you'll be able to see those questions and comments. Keep it family friendly, as always. As you might imagine, this is a family friendly channel, and we try to keep it that way. But otherwise, feel free to jump on in and ask a question. That really, really is a lot of fun for me. And you can even stump me with questions if it's something I don't know. I don't know everything. I've been working with animals for over 22 years, but I don't know everything. And I am a zoologist, by the way. I do have my zoology degree, and I've been working with animals for a long time, but I'm always learning. That's one of my favorite things about this field, is always learning everything. In fact, I was just learning stuff yesterday about tarantulas, because I was basically prepping for a class that I'm going to be doing for a homeschool group that I've been working with here in San Antonio. And the next class, we're going to be teaching all about tarantulas. And great segue, because the first animal I brought today for you guys to meet happens to be another type of tarantula. Not the same type that I'm bringing to that class. Oddly enough, it's actually another species of tarantula. We have several here at Once in a Wild, but our most used animals, if you will, in the tarantula category are going to be the Arizona blonde, and then this one, which is the pink toe tarantula. Those two are the most handleable of all of our tarantulas. We do have several others, and most of the other tarantulas that we do have are not the most handleable. They don't really like to be held, or they don't tolerate being held as much. But Tiptoes is very tolerant of handling. And this is Tiptoes here, and she's a pink toe tarantula, specifically an Antilles Pinto Tarantula. I'm going to show all of our followers on this platform up close a little bit, and you guys can see some details. Let's zoom in a little bit. Ooh, let's focus again. It's a little bit hard when you have like a macro type situation, right? But this is Tiptoes, and she's a pink toe tarantula, as I said before, an Antilles pink toe tarantula. And these guys are found in the Antilles Islands in Central America. There we go. You guys are getting a little behind the scenes over on Instagram with my sink and everything in the backdrop. Sorry for the shaky shakes as well. We have the Pinto Tarantula, specifically Antilles Pinto Tarantula. Her name is Tiptoes, and these guys are found in the Antilles Islands of Central America. The Antilles Islands are right near Cancun in the Caribbean. Beautiful weather year-round, right? And they are not really going to have to worry about any seasonal changes at all. They like it tropical. They like it humid. They like the rainforest. They like warm weather, but not uncomfortably warm, so not a desert species by any means, and definitely humidity is their friend. So this animal would be actually an arboreal species. Can you see how well they climb? That is a pretty amazing ability to just stick to my hand, but as you can imagine, that might be good for living in trees. So arboreal means tree-dwelling, tree-living, tree lifestyle. Arboreal, which is rooted from the word arbol. That's a Spanish word for tree, but it's also the Latin origin of tree dwelling, arboreal, really. And these guys are great climbers. So they stick to surfaces with their little feet, little toes, if you will. Of course, spiders of all types and arachnids of all types, not just spiders, but arachnids of all kinds have 8 legs and 2 arms. Did you know they have 8 legs and 2 arms, not just 8 legs and no arms? So they have 10 limbs total, and each little end of their hand, well, it's not really a hand, it's an arm or a leg has a toe, and each toe has 2 claws, and their claws are what help them to stick to stuff. They're very tiny, so she's not hurting me, but I can feel them ever so slightly, her little claws, and those little claws are retractable, just like a cat's claws. On a cat's claws, they're much more sharp, right, and much larger. And cats use their claws for hunting, for grabbing onto their prey, and then they retract their claws whenever they're not really needing to use them, etc., so they can just walk around. These guys also have retractable claws. Now, usually they are going to be out when they're climbing, and that is how they climb, right? How they stick to things. Some tarantulas even use part of their web. They'll make web with their hind end, right? And they'll actually use their web to get a better grip as well. If they're having trouble getting grip on a surface, web is much more sticky than just a smooth surface, right? Or even their feet and their claws themselves. So if they need a little more stickiness, they'll use their webbing. Isn't that cool? So these guys, though, they mostly use their claws to climb, and they're very good climbers. They actually are very lightweight, so they can kind of just like grip the surface, almost like a mountain climber would use like a tool, like a pick, to climb up a mountain face, a cliff face, sheer cliff. A mountain climber would need like tools, even like boots with little spikes on the front of them. And I'm sorry, I'm not a mountain climber, so there's a different term for that. Please let me know. But they are going to use kind of like a tool of some kind, right? These guys are just built with their own climbing tools, so they don't need to worry about any of that. They stick right to the surface for climbing. They can climb up the side of a tree. They can climb up leaves, of course. They can climb up anything, really. They're very good at it. Not every tarantula is like that. Most tarantulas, I would venture to say, and please, if you are an entomologist out there, I am not an entomologist, I'm a zoologist. But if you know better than me, I just know animals overall. I'm not really an expert in any one type of animal. But entomologists know more about invertebrates and things like that, right? Insects, arachnids, and all that. So correct me if I'm wrong. No, I forgot what I was saying, you guys. This is real life. I was saying that most tarantulas are terrestrial, meaning that they are actually ground-dwelling or at least semi-terrestrial on the ground most of the time. There are, to my knowledge, fewer tarantulas that actually climb, and many other spider species, of course, do climb very, very often. But tarantulas, like this, are not the most common in my experience. So a lot of tarantulas don't climb at all. And in fact, they're very, very, very fragile. All tarantulas are like that, but these guys are designed to climb. They're designed to kind of jump around, skip around, be quick in the trees to get away from things. So they can kind of be more acrobatic, if you will, than a ground dwelling or AKA terrestrial tarantula. So terrestrial tarantula, I would never ever hold just like this. I would actually be holding like this. Look at Tiptoes go. She's still there. So I would be holding a terrestrial tarantula very, very carefully as to not drop them, because if I drop a terrestrial tarantula, that wouldn't be good for them. They could actually become injured very seriously, potentially. So we wouldn't be doing that with the terrestrial tarantula, just so you know. But the arboreal tarantulas, the climbing ones, they have no problem climbing surfaces. And she's very, very used to being handled, as you can see. Now, she does not bother me to climb all over me. I know that not everybody is a fan of spiders. Maybe you have slight arachnophobia or very severe arachnophobia, or maybe you're just uncomfortable with creepy crawly creatures in general and it's just not your thing. That takes time to get used to. I've never really been afraid of spiders. I am actually very scared of roaches. And here once in a while, we actually have Madagascar hissing cockroaches. And I've gotten over my fear of that species of cockroach, and a few others too, like dubia roaches don't really bother me either. Those guys are a lot bigger, a lot heavier, a lot slower than the common kitchen roach or the great big flying like water bug roaches that we have here in the United States and all over the place. They're actually like worldwide, aren't they? As long as it's a warm enough climate. So those guys do definitely scare me. So I understand some people not being comfortable with spiders, but it might be something that you're willing to overcome. We can actually help you guys out with exposure therapy to certain animals, and that wouldn't necessarily involve you holding the animal at all. That might just be helping you get used to the animal in the same room as you or the same exact space as you. It could be outside, or that might be us holding the animal near you and then you're getting used to that. And if you want to, you can actually progress to being nearer to the animal, etc., etc., etc. That's something that we specialize in with, of course, spiders, roaches too, like I mentioned, also snakes. Snakes are a very common one for people to be a little bit leery of. And there are many others too that people may be a little bit nervous around. So that's something that we actually provide as well. So please let me know if you're interested in any of that too. We don't just teach about animals. We don't just provide animal therapy that's traditional animal therapy that's like petting animals like our beautiful rabbit or guinea pigs or tortoises or even other animals that you might just pet and hold. We actually can help you conquer your fears and phobias of animals too. That is actually one of the only ways. I think there's just a couple of different ways to actually conquer phobias, and most of it has to do with exposure to your fears, whether it be slight exposure or not so slight, more extreme. Now you'll notice her kind of moving around when I laugh or when I breathe or say certain words with like a P or a T. These guys are very sensitive to movement, especially air movement, or even surface movement. So these guys, of course, make webs, like I said before. They might make webs to create a surface to climb on. That's what tarantulas do in general. But tarantulas also might make web to just keep themselves comfortable, like a carpet or maybe a hammock. These guys, since they are tree-dwelling tarantulas, they will have more of a hammock scenario than a carpet scenario, which would be more of an underground or a terrestrial tarantula tactic to stay comfortable. That would be the carpeting, which they do. Tarantulas in general actually do make more of a cobweb style web than like a pretty like orb weaver web or other like maybe like barn spiders and things like that. These guys are going to make more of a cobweb situation. It's very thick, white, and it looks more like Halloween like decorations than anything else. That's what their web looks like. And whether they be in the trees or underground or just on the ground, they're going to use their web to make something comfortable to sit on or hang out on, right? And then they can also use their webs to sense danger, to sense food knocking at the door, etc. So that will give them at least some sort of alarm or notification, if you will, that a food item or a dangerous something could be near to them. And they're going to respond with their sense of touch. So they respond to their sense of touch, I should say. So they're covered in little hairs, which are not really made of keratin, like our hair. It's actually made of something else, and I forget what it's made out of. Oh, it's made of chitin, just like an exoskeleton of any type. So their exoskeleton, which they do have, since they're invertebrates, that means they have no bones. Invertebrate literally means no vertebrae, but they literally have no bones whatsoever. And their teeth, which are their fangs, they have two fangs. Their hair And everything else that's on their exoskeleton is made out of chitin, which is what an exoskeleton of a bug in general is made out of. Could be a bug, could be a arachnid, could be any of those guys. Anything with a exoskeleton is made out of chitin, as far as I know. Now, these guys do have soft external shells, not hard like a ladybug or something like that, or even a roach. These guys have very, very hair-like structures, and their hair-like structures, which are made out of chitin, they actually do alarm them, alert them, and help them sense movement, help them sense even sound through vibrations, and they even help them sense smells. So they smell very, very different than us. They're actually going to pick up scent particles with their hairs and basically get a sense of what that scent particle smells like, I guess. It's just super different than us. That's actually how they find mates. I imagine that's how they just kind of explore the world around them in general, is going to be through smell a little bit, but mainly through sense of touch. Touch is going to be their main sense for sure, and that is what they're very sensitive to. So I'm sure you've seen her kind of moving around as I breathe on her while I'm talking. It's just the way it is. And that's going to be her just kind of like dealing with that, moving away from the breath. And that is her kind of instinct to get away from that. It just startles her for half a second. Or even if I touch her like that, she's going to try to get away from it, and then she's fine. But these guys are really cool. This is actually my favorite species of tarantula, is the pink toes, all the pink toes. This is specifically, like I said, the Antilles Pinto Tarantula. For those of you just joining us, hi, on Instagram specifically, and on all of the rest of social media. This is Tiptoes, the pink toe tarantula, one of my favorite species in the world. They're probably my favorite if I have to pick just one. They're very handleable, but they also move around, which I actually really like. So a lot of tarantulas are very, very, they just kind of hang out. They're less mobile, if you will. They're kind of lazy. Not their fault. That's just the way they are. These guys are a lot more active. And they are still considered to be like an ambush predator, because they'll kind of wait around on their web in the tree where they live, and they'll wait for food to kind of come around. But they also might choose to be an active predator and actively seek out bugs like flies or crickets or roaches in their natural environment in the Antilles Islands in the Caribbean. And they might be a little more actively hunting. And what's neat about their environment is they don't have seasons. They're going to basically have nice weather all the time. Lucky them, as long as it doesn't hurricane, right? They do have to worry about storms. Definitely a problem there. But as far as temperatures, their temperatures are tropical. They live in the tropics. So they don't have to worry about snow or any seasonal problem. So they can hunt every day if they really want to, although they usually don't. These guys really don't store away food like most spiders do. A lot of spiders will store away food in their webs and things like that. These guys really don't do that, as far as my research has shown. I haven't really discovered a tarantula species. Tell me if I'm wrong, entomologist, like I said. I don't mind being wrong. I haven't discovered through research any tarantulas that actually like web their food into like a store away for later situation. So they will basically just hunt when they're hungry or when opportunity strikes. So, but this species can find bugs every day if they need to. So it's not really very scarce. An animal that would have a scarce situation where there's less food, right, would be like a desert animal. Desert animals are adapted to eat like maybe once a month. These guys could go once a month without eating, but they prefer to eat about once a week, maybe twice or 3 times a week if they can. But being a tropical animal, they can eat that often. Hello, we have somebody asking how big do they get? So Tiptoes is about 5 years old. And for her subspecies, the Antilles Pinto Tarantula, they don't get too much larger than this. So they're not a very large tarantula, although she's not a small tarantula either. She's medium, right? All tarantulas are basically big, hairy spiders. They're in the spider category of invertebrates. And but they don't get huge. They're not as big as, like, of course, maybe some of the terrestrial tarantulas, like the Arizona blonde, the rose hairs, the Mexican red knees, Mexican red legs, some of the bird-eating tarantulas, which bird eating is just their name. They don't always eat birds. Eating birds is very rare for them. But some of those heavier, larger tarantulas that live on the ground, especially, are much larger than this. So she's kind of a small to medium size tarantula. They don't really get much bigger than this. Males of this same species are smaller and more slender, and females are a little bit bigger. She is a female, and we know that because of some of her body features. She is bigger than a male would be. Like I said, she's more plump and I mean that in the nicest way. She's more plump in the abdomen, which is their hind end, since they have two body parts, the cephalothorax and abdomen. Cephalothorax means head and body combo, basically, and then the abdomen is the hind end. So they're basically shaped like a figure of 8. And remember, they have 8 legs, so that's easy to remember. 8 legs, figure 8, and then 2 pedipalps or arms in the front. So the females have a little bit more of a plumper look to them. They also have smaller ends to their 2 front arms, which are their pedipalps. Pedipalps are the proper way to call their arms, the shorter appendages that they have. You see, the shorter appendages they have in the front are obviously smaller than the rest of their leg. On a male, they have almost like boxing gloves on the end of their pedipalps, and that is actually how they mate as well. That's part of the male reproduction and how you can tell he's a male. A male would also have a more slender abdomen in most tarantula species and a more slender body in general. And a male would have kind of more spindly looking legs once mature. This is mature males, not babies, right? They will have more spindly looking legs. And on their first set of legs, not the arms, but the legs, are going to be little claws underneath. They're called hooks. And that's going to actually keep him safe from the female's claws. The claws keep him safe from the female's fangs. I mean, she doesn't have claws. The male has claws to keep her fangs away from him when they're breeding. So that's what the claws are for. I hope that made sense. I messed up a little bit there. It happens. It's real life. And it's live, so whatever. But these guys, when they come together for breeding, they're actually going to face each other. And the male will, it's fascinating. The male will actually gather sperm. This is a family show, I promise. He'll gather sperm onto his arms, which are bigger than the female's arms. And then he'll use his 2 front legs with the little hooks and like basically keep her fangs away from him during the mating process. And hopefully afterwards she will say, "Ooh, thank you very much," and not eat him. But sometimes afterwards he gets eaten anyway, because these guys are definitely cannibalistic, opportunistically cannibalistic, when they're hungry enough. So hopefully the time is right, the pheromones are in the air, and he can sense that and know that she's ready for breeding. Because if he comes knocking on her door whenever it's not time for breeding, she would probably just eat him without question. So that is a cannibal animal. That was cool. But yeah, but during the breeding season, which I don't know if they have a breeding season or if it's all year. I don't think so, but I don't know when their breeding season is for a tropical species. It doesn't really make any sense. Most animals' breeding season is in the spring, right? That makes sense because there's more resources. These guys don't have seasons, so I'm not really sure, and I don't breed them. So if you know, please let me know. Yeah. So yeah, they don't get super big. They're actually kind of a smaller species. They're very easy to house. I just love them because they're a little more, I think, safe to handle, because they are capable of just kind of sticking to your hand. Although if you have tarantulas at home, or if you want to get a tarantula, I don't recommend handling them every day. I don't recommend handling them very often at all, because they are very fragile, especially if you're new to tarantulas. It can be very dangerous for the tarantula. Most of our tarantulas, we have 9 right now. Most of them we don't really handle whatsoever. Blondie, the Arizona blonde, and Tiptoes, the Antilles Pinto Tarantula, are the 2 that we use the most for programs, because they're very, very handleable, and we're very careful with them. But we also have one more named Desi, and Desi's actually a striped knee, a Costa Rican striped knee tarantula. I think Desi's actually a male, which is kind of disappointing, because another thing about the males, not only are they smaller, just kind of like, they're also don't live very long. So the females of this species can live 12 to 15 years. Some terrestrial species, such as the Arizona blonde that we have, Blondie, and like your Mexican red knees and those guys, the females can live for like 30 years. So these guys don't live as long as the 30 years, but males of the same species live way shorter than that. They only live for like 2 to maybe 5 years, very maximum. Typically, a male of the Antilles Pinto Tarantula lives 2 to 3 years only, which is such a bummer. But that's why he, is into mating so much, because he only has so long to live anyway. So he's like, hey, super worth it. I'm going to go procreate. Here we go. Let's do this, kind of thing. And if he gets eaten, he gets eaten. By then, he's mature anyway. Males take just a couple of years to mature at the most. Females take a lot longer as well. So she has taken longer to grow up and become mature, but it's been worth the wait because she'll live longer in the end. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Tarantulas in general have a lot of babies, depending on the species. Certain species can have upwards of 3,000 babies. but as little as 500 for the same species, just depending on the fertility. These guys can actually have anywhere from like 50 to 200 babies. It's still a lot, but not as much as some of the other species. But they are one of my favorites. They're also one of the most beautiful, in my opinion. That's, of course, a matter of opinion. I love their colors. It's hard to see on the camera. Believe me, it doesn't do her any justice. We've got some really nice photos of her on our social media and at onceinaWhile.com. Tiptoes is very, very popular. But you can see she kind of has like a bluish cephalothorax, which is her center part, right, where all the legs and the two arms are connected to. Cephalo means head and thorax means midsection. So it's a head and body combo, really, head and midsection combo. And then the abdomen is like a burgundy color. These guys have a burgundy, beautiful abdomen, and that is their booty. A burgundy booty. At the end of their booty or abdomen, they've got, I believe, this species, do you have 2 or 4? If there's 4, the other 2 are tiny, but they have at least 2 spinnerets. And the spinnerets are the 2 little finger-like projections that you see there. And I can't remember if there are just like 2 super tiny ones underneath as well. Tarantulas have 2 to 4 spinnerets, which are finger-like projections on their hind end, which produce the web. She decided to jump right off of my hand onto the computer, but remember, she's a jumping tarantula, so she is okay. Like I said, she is okay to climb around. And she's making web right now. I don't know if you can see that, but she's actually making web because that would have been her tactic to stay, you know, basically jumping around making web would help her to stay safe as she's jumping around in a tree or something like that. Pretty neat. But those are what make the web. By the way, jumping around is going to be a great defense, or I guess way to get away from predators and danger. Jumping away, moving away like she just did. And I didn't mean to startle her, it just happened. They're animals, so they get startled sometimes. But another tactic is going to be pooping on the enemy. That's a kind of a universal thing to do if you're an animal in general. And another way to stay safe that most tarantulas can do is by throwing urticating hairs onto the enemy. Now, I mentioned that these guys have hair, but their hair is not made from keratin. It's made from chitin, which is going to be the same thing of an exoskeleton of any like insect or arachnid. By the way, arachnids include spiders, scorpions, ticks, and mites. Everybody's favorite, ticks and mites, right? But my favorite arachnids are spiders and scorpions, right? But these guys have an exoskeleton that's very hairy, so they're going to be able to use their hair for a weapon. Can you believe that? Now, they cannot just shoot their hair by concentrating really hard and pushing their body and like just thinking really hard and they just fly out. They actually have to rub the hair off of their body with their leg. So it's typically going to be with their very back leg, so this leg here, or this leg, one of those. When they get startled by something, a predator, whatever it might be, they can actually rub their back leg up against their abdomen. And that will cause a lot of those urticating or irritating hairs to fly into the air or in the vicinity of the predator, and usually right in the face. So they might be simultaneously pooping and rubbing hair into the air, and that will cause a tiny, nearly microscopic cloud of hair to fly right into the enemy's eyes. And that will be very itchy. Now, it's not going to kill anybody. It's not super dangerous. If it happened to me right now, I would be fine. I would just have itchy eyes for like a few hours. It might itch your skin as well. Depending on the severity of the urticating hairs of the species, these guys don't really have super severe urticating hairs, but other species do have a little bit more severe hairs. That makes sense. And microscopically, if you take these little hairs under a microscope and look at them, they are full of barbs. So that's what causes the like the itchiness. They actually look like little like tiny leaves hanging off of each little hair, which is made out of chitin instead of keratin. Can you believe that? So neat. But they are just as soft as keratin. But keratin can be hard or soft too, right? Did you know that keratin makes your fingernails and your hair on the same animal, you, the human? So that's pretty amazing, the variety of keratin that we have on our body, right? And remember, these guys do not have any bone whatsoever. They're made out of an exoskeleton, and underneath their exoskeleton is very soft organs and everything else that keeps them alive, right? These guys do have many internal organs. They don't have a true brain, though. They have what we call like a ganglion or network of ganglia, and those will function kind of like a brain, but they will be more like a nervous system for them. So they're not dumb, they're just different. They can't really calculate things, but they can operate on instinct, as you see her doing now, right? She's still a wild animal. And I think Tiptoes is ready to go back and rest after that jump down. Don't worry, she's gonna be just fine. A spider like this is designed to jump from here to there. I've seen some people handling Pinto Tarantulas like this, and they jump from hand to hand, and they're perfectly fine. That's what they're designed for. They're a tree-dwelling tarantula. There are other tarantulas that are different species that are bigger than the Pinto and are still arboreal. But I believe there's no arboreal species, like true arboreal species that live in trees, that is any bigger than like the bird eaters or the more terrestrial, heavy-bodied. Even the Mexican red knee, those guys are really, really heavy-bodied and big compared to any arboreal tarantula, whether they be bigger than her or the same size. Well, I hope you enjoyed her. If you ever want to get over your arachnophobia, or if you're a super fan of spiders like me and you don't have arachnophobia at all, we'd love to see you in person either way or virtually to help you out with your spider experience either way, whether you love them or whether you are a little bit nervous around them. We never say hate them because you shouldn't hate any animal. These guys are extremely important to the natural environment. We always try to teach you guys about that too and what you can do to help them out. So the reason that spiders are important is they eat stuff. They eat stuff and stuff eats them. That's why they're important. They're a vital part of the food chain and very misunderstood. Did you know that out of all the tarantulas, there is absolutely no tarantula that can kill a human being? That does not exist. It is a complete myth. The movies lie, as you probably guessed. Tarantulas are not deadly to humans. There is a similar species all the way over in Australia, unless you're from Australia. Hello, in Australia. We're all the way in Texas, so we do not have the species. But the funnel web spider, which is not a tarantula, but it's big like a tarantula, lives in Australia. And those guys are absolutely, definitely deadly to humans. And there's only really a couple other spider species that you have to watch out for, but very, very few people actually pass away from being bitten by a spider of any type, except for that funnel web spider. So be careful if you're else. She's like, bye, there's a funnel web spider. With my breath again. I guess my breath is bad. Maybe I should go brush my teeth. But these guys are harmless to humans. She's going to go back and rest. Bye, Tiptoes. Great job, as always. She's going to go back and rest, but tarantulas get a really bad rep, and spiders in general get a bad rep, but they're super important. They eat roaches, they eat flies, they eat all kinds of harmful insects. More insects and too many insects, I should say, is a bad thing, right? Too many of any animal is a bad thing. But insects, especially blood-sucking insects like mosquitoes and flies, etc., they can carry diseases and spread them around to other animals. And even roaches, which are, of course, super omnivores, right? Roaches are omnivores to the millionth degree. Roaches can eat all kinds of stuff for the most part, most roaches. So roaches can crawl around in your garbage, right? And then carry around diseases that they pick up in the garbage and whatever that they're eating. And then they carry them to the next thing. But if we don't have animals controlling those numbers of roaches, flies, mosquitoes, all the things, then we have too many problems. So we need some predators in the ecosystem. And plus, they're not even harmful to humans in the first place. So if you see a spider in your house, do me a favor, don't squash it. You can maybe use a little cup and a piece of paper and set it free outside, or you can use a little broom and gently sweep it outside. Or you can just let them live in your house. I mean, within reason, most spiders, jumping spiders, garden spiders, even wolf spiders, which look really scary and crawl really fast, those guys are totally harmless to humans. There's only a couple, the black widow, the brown widow, and the brown recluse here in the United States that you really have to avoid. And I don't really recommend necessarily even killing those guys unless you have a big problem. And then what you do is call an expert to help you remove or do something about the problem, right? We don't want to be going around squashing bugs or spiders. Because you might get in trouble. You might get hurt that way because they're going to be wanting to defend themselves. And also, they're not even deadly in the first place for the most part. So, for the most part, you can leave them alone, and they'll leave you alone, like I always say, and enjoy them and thank them from a distance, safely away from them. But most spiders, like I said, are perfectly harmless to humans, and very few people have even died from spider bites in a long time, as far as I know. So. And we're not in Australia. Unless you happen to be in Australia, then you have a lot more animals to worry about as well. There are far more accidents with pets like dogs, horses, and cows than wildlife in general, right? So there's nothing really to be afraid of. You just avoid them and they'll avoid you. And trust me, they're a lot more afraid of us than we are of them. So let it be, let it be. So the next animal rather is going to be a reptile. Are you guys happy to meet a reptile next? Are you excited to meet a reptile next? It's actually going to be a really neat insectivore. So the spider that we just met, the tarantula, is an insectivore, technically. It eats all kinds of insects. This is also an insectivore, technically, and eats all kinds of insects. This is Dino, the Savannah Monitor, a juvenile-sized Savannah Monitor. Can you see the size here? Definitely still young. We don't really know Dino's age because Dino is a rescue. We do have a lot of rescue animals here at Once in a While. We're really proud to say that. Dino was actually found roaming around in the wilds of North Texas. Yes, you were. And a Good Samaritan actually picked up this lizard and carefully, I guess. Luckily, Dino is a very nice Savannah Monitor. They're not always like this, so please do not get a Savannah Monitor for a pet. I do not recommend Savannah Monitors to anyone for a pet, unless you are a expert level herpetologist type keeper. It is okay to rescue them if you happen to be like a very experienced person with monitors in general. But even as monitors go, they're not really the best pets because they aren't the healthiest. Most of them are actually wild caught individuals for the pet trade, and that is something I'm definitely not wanting to condone at all. So when you buy a Savannah Monitor in a pet store, they're typically from the wild, and most of the time they will not live past a couple of years because they're not going to be very healthy. They're probably going to have parasites inside of them. Not fun. And most of them really are not very good pets in general because they're kind of nasty. I don't mean gross. I mean, they'll bite you. So most Savannah Monitors will bite. Dino is a very nice one. I mean, most of the time. I've never seen this one in a bad mood, really. Just in a maybe a I'm looking for food mood. Oh, I'm looking for food mood. We're rhyming everything today. But anyway, this guy or gal, I don't know the gender yet because we don't know because they're too young yet to tell externally. Time will tell. These guys are much larger as males than females, so we shall see. But also, I don't know the age. I don't know much about them because they were found out in the wilderness of North Texas by a Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan tried to keep them for a while, but realized that they were not really equipped to have a lizard like this. So they ended up gifting or delivering him to a rehabber, which does not specialize in reptiles whatsoever. She actually specializes in mammals that are local to Texas and everything like that. And she nurses them back to health, and most of the time she'll re-release them. That's actually where we got our opossums that you guys know. Alice and Cooper, our opossums, came from the same source. this wonderful woman who is in North Texas as well. But anyway, somebody actually found this lizard, kept him for a while, him or her, and realized that it was not a good idea for them, so they delivered them to her, the rehabber, and rehabber said, oh my gosh, let me find a home for this crazy lizard. So the crazy lizard got to live with us here at Once in a While, and that's where this crazy lizard will stay. So we named him or her Dino. And Dino, like I said, is a pretty nice Savannah Monitor. Very, very healthy, number one, surprisingly. Doing fine. They don't always end up like that, like I said. They don't always live very long at all, and hopefully this one will. But we do not know the birthday. We do not know any estimate of age at all. Could have been stunted through improper care, because that can happen to some reptiles. A lot of people assume it's the size of the enclosure, or a fish as well. It's the size of the enclosure, and they will just become stunted from that. That's not really the case. It's more to improper care. They might be stressed and also stunted that way as well. But most animals, when still fed and everything else, they will still continue to grow, and they will just be way too big for the enclosure if it's a small enclosure. This one, we don't know much about them, so we can only guess. It's a wild guess as to how old this animal is. And like I said, might be older because might be stunted. I hope that makes sense. So reptiles can be like that sometimes because they're cold-blooded. They don't eat every day. They kind of eat. They can grow based on their calorie intake. This one eats like a horse, or I should say it eats like a monitor. Eats great. Primarily insectivore. So these guys get a lot of insects. This is a species from the African savanna, hence the name Savannah Monitor. And they mostly look for scorpions, tarantulas, good thing we put tarantula away, right? Scorpions, tarantulas, roaches, large crickets, walking sticks, all kinds of big bugs is their favorite food. This one will eat anything I put in front of him or her. That could be super worms. That could be crickets, of course, which are really not that much food. Dubia roaches. It could be mealworms, so they're smaller, right? It could be any sort of bug or worm. And occasional rodents. We don't do too much of that because they can become obese and be very, very sick. They can get fatty liver disease if fed too much meat and things like that. They should really be on mostly, like basically an 80 to 90% insect diet. Fun time. So if you cannot provide that to this lizard, then you should never get one. They're also a very active lizard. As you can see, it is already past sunset, and this lizard should be in bed. And we have some lights in here, so I'm sure he's like really confused as to why we're still awake. But usually at this time, he or she, I keep saying he, but it is what it is, they will go straight to bed underneath the cave and just go to sleep. And in the daytime, they'll come out and be very active. They're always kind of looking for something to do. They're looking for food. They're looking to dig. They're looking to sunbathe. So they need a lot of activity. They need a lot of space. The more space, the better. But they're challenging as well because they need a lot of heat as well. So they need a basking spot of very, very hot. I can't remember what it is, but at the top of my head, if you guys know, just let me know in a comment. But they need a pretty hot basking temperature, and then they need a gradient to be all the way to like the 70s on the other side, maybe even 80s during the day and 70s at night, something like that, right? And I do know this, I just forgot. I set it up and then set it and forget it. I'm also terrible with numbers, so please forgive me. I promise he's taken care of. But they do have quite the interesting temperature requirements. They also need ultraviolet light. And it's hard to give them enough space and also enough heat at the same time. They can also escape, so it has to be a very secure type enclosure. It cannot be something they can dig out of, which might have been what happened with Dino in the first place. Dino might have been taken care of in his home that he was adopted into in the first place, but then might have just escaped. Maybe a child or an adult, I'm not going to only blame children, maybe a human of some sort just had them roaming around the house and a front door or back door was open or a window and it was like, see ya, and then just wandering around looking for fun things to do. That's how they are. They're also extremely, extremely intelligent. This is one of the most intelligent reptiles for sure in the animal kingdom, and I dare to say they're just as smart as dogs. These guys are actually so smart that a lot of people that own them say that they understand the words that we're saying. They just kind of learn, like kind of like a dog does, to respond. Thank you for settling down there, Dino. To kind of respond accordingly to certain things that are said. They're just extremely smart, and they definitely know when it's feeding time. They definitely know when it's bedtime. They know when it's time to wake up. He or she definitely knows his name, or her name is Dino, or Dina, maybe later. If we end up having a girl, maybe we'll change it to Dina. That's a cute name too. I went with Dino from, the Flintstones. But yeah, they're super smart. So that's also a challenge when you have a more intelligent type animal, is to give them something to do, lots of handling, if they happen to be an aggressive Savannah Monitor, which is usually the case. Or I don't want to say they're aggressive. They're just being them. They're just being themselves. They're being a lizard that bites. If it is a lizard that bites, that's normal. And you either just have to live with it, or you have to train that out of them. In my experience, it is very, very possible to train any animal to do stuff, but some animals flat out refuse to do stuff as well. So it just kind of depends. And in my experience, and this is just my opinion, don't come for me, you either have an aggressive monitor or you have a non-aggressive monitor. I haven't really put a ton of work into, except for just handling a lot, this lizard. This lizard in particular is actually a very, very sweet by nature lizard. And I could tell that pretty much right away when I picked them up. I was very, very grateful that it was not a I'm going to bite your face off type monitor situation, because they are very hard to work with in that case. And we're an animal ambassador company. So we need animals to visit other people and be able to at least be able to travel and, see people and go out and at least be held a little bit for management purposes, etc. But you know what? Sometimes our animals, when we adopt them, they decide they don't want to be animal ambassadors, and they just want to be ambassadors in their own way, which could be more hands-off. That does happen sometimes, and that is okay. Our animals actually never leave our facility once they become adopted into our facility. I want you guys to know that. So that is something we're very proud of, and we're actually very different than a lot of zoos. And that's just our personal decision and how we operate. Once we take an animal in, they are with us for the rest of their life. So that's pretty cool, if I do say so myself. But this guy here, luckily, a very tame Savannah Monitor. But are they really tame? They're still a wild animal. As you can see, still a wiggle worm. Not necessarily trying to, if this animal was trying to be aggressive, you would know. I absolutely would know. They would have their mouth open, gaping, trying to bite my face off. I have definitely worked with many Savannah Monitors in my day, and many monitors in general that are like that, right, buddy? Yeah, he's actually very, very sweet. But they do have sharp nails, which are trimmed. If the nails were not trimmed, you would see copious blood from my skin right now, from all the attempts to run away that they're doing right now. We're a wiggle worm, but that is very, very normal for a Savannah Monitor. They're just always on the go, go, go. Now, I do not want to set them down at this point while wiggling around because that would just reinforce or train that behavior as a norm. We're settling down now. I think it's all the lights in here getting them excited to move around and be like in the daytime. Now, when they call, as if it's a false day, right? Now, the reason they call Savannah monitors and monitors in general monitors is because they can see from very far away. These guys have excellent eyesight. In fact, they have excellent all 5 senses. These guys can see very well, they smell really well, they taste really well, they hear really well, and they touch really well. And you'll notice there's a forked tongue on this lizard that keeps sticking out over and over again. What does that remind you guys of? I'm sure it reminds you of a snake's tongue. They have a very similar tongue to a snake, although they have a sense of taste where a snake really doesn't have a sense of taste. A snake is a lot more simple. Of course, they don't have legs. Snakes also don't have any eyelids, whereas most lizards do have eyelids. There are exceptions to every rule. But snakes never have eyelids. Snakes use their sense of smell via the tongue. This guy can smell with the tongue a little bit and also taste with the tongue a little bit and smell with the nostrils and breathe with the nostrils. So they're super capable of all the 5 senses and super awesome. Now, the reason they have the forked tongue is to give them a little bit extra sense of direction. They already have the ears for that and the eyes for that to get a sense of direction, but the tongue is going to give them even more of that. Can y'all see? And they have what's called a Jacobson's organ, which a snake has too. They'll stick the tongue out, and the tongue goes back into their mouth very easily, right? Out and in. Very slender, very seamless. And the 2 points of the tongue give them directional sense. And when the 2 points of the tongue actually press against the roof of the mouth, there is a little pocket on the roof of their mouth on a lizard like this, and also on a snake, called the Jacobson's organ. The Jacobson's organ actually exists on lots of animals, but it helps them to basically get lots of information from smells on the tongue, and it goes straight to the brain. So it's like a fast track system to give them lots of info based on smells picked up on the tongue. Isn't that super cool? Remember, these guys can also smell with their nose. So they're super sensors. They're really, really capable of lots of things. And to be very, very honest with you, they should be left in the wild. Monitors, in my opinion, are not for everybody. Expert keepers, use your judgment. If you would like a monitor lizard, I recommend more of the smaller monitors like the, I can't even think of the species, but there are smaller, like mini monitors, if you will, that are a lot more, they're just more manageable. It's easy to give them a lot of room. Savannah monitors are a medium-sized monitor, and as you can see, Dino isn't very big. Dino might be stunted, or Dino might get a lot bigger. We shall see. But if Dino ends up being a female, Dina, they could be around 3 foot. But if Dino ends up being a guy, they could be around 5 foot, which is a pretty big lizard in general. Joanna the iguana that we have is around 5.5 foot, including her tail, but they're a very differently built type of lizard. Another terrible pet. Don't get a green iguana and don't get a Savannah monitor just because Once in a Wild has them. There's a good reason why Once in a Wild actually has these lizards. It's because somebody else either didn't want them or they escaped from their home or something happened. You never know. I wish they could just tell us what happened. Maybe they are trying to tell us and we just do not speak the language, do we? Wouldn't it be neat to be able to learn from them what happened? But that's the same way with a lot of rescue animals. You just do your best once you do have them, right? And you hope for the best after that. So far, so good with this lizard. Thriving, doing very well here with us. And favorite foods include things like superworms, dubia roaches, small mice on occasion, pieces of chicken sometimes on occasion for treats. Those are only treats. They don't get them very often, maybe once a month. And how often do they eat? Well, in the wild, they eat about every day. They're a pretty active hunter, as long as it's warm out. The savannas of Africa, you have 2 seasons. Some are cooler than others, or one is cooler than the other, and that's going to be the wet season. But the wet season is still warm. They never really have to worry about a winter. And then they have the dry season where food is a little bit more scarce, so they won't be able to eat as often as they want, but they will eat as much as they can. They're opportunistic that way, like most wild animals, right? Opportunistic hunters. So most predators in the wild are opportunistic, meaning that they will eat whatever opportunity they can or whenever they can, right? But here with us, we do feed Dino about 3 or 4 times a week. That's actually a lot for a lizard, especially a carnivorous lizard like this one. This is 100% a carnivore. They don't eat any kind of vegetables at all. That is all the monitors. That's another big difference between a monitor and a tegu. Tegus are kind of like the New World version of monitors. Monitors are all Old World, which are anything but the Americas, right? Across the pond, if you will. That's going to be Asia, Australia, Africa, and I don't believe they exist in Europe. But they could. There could be some monitors in Europe, so please let me know. I can't remember. But definitely in those other continents. Definitely not in Antarctica. That's too cold, right? And too arid for most animals in general. Definitely cold-blooded animal. They are cold-blooded, just like the tarantula we met before. That means they don't have their own body temperature. They have to rely on the external temperature to warm their body or to cool their body. And this animal really does prefer a very, very hot basking spot and a very kind of high, kind of gradual gradient, if you will. That's what gradient means, Amanda. But they need a gradient to a cooler temperature to be able to, number one, sleep and go into a cave and sleep at night, but also to just be able to cool their bodies. They can't be hot all over their enclosure. That would be very, very dangerous for them. So it's a lot. And if you don't know how to do that, you should not have one. That is my opinion. And that's what I was saying before. Monitors in general are I think they are the most difficult of all the lizards. Monitors in general. I would say chameleons are also more difficult on the difficult spectrum too, but chameleons aren't dangerous to humans most of the time, whereas some monitors can be extremely dangerous to humans. The biggest monitor of all is not a pet whatsoever. They do exist in zoos, though, sometimes. You might have seen some up close. It's the Komodo Dragon. Komodo Dragon is the close cousin to the Savannah Monitor, do you know, right? And Komodos are the largest of all the lizards. Pretty cool. But Dino won't get nearly as large as the Komodo, and you also don't have any venom. Some monitor lizards have venom. I don't believe the Savannah does. It's not known yet anyway. But not just the Komodo dragon has venom. There are other monitor lizards, and I'm not going to say what they are because I'm not 100% sure which species they are, but they're other larger other larger monitors rather, not savannas, but other larger monitors that have venom. They're not necessarily deadly like the Komodo, but they can be kind of serious if you're allergic. So be careful, again, with getting monitors. And monitors in general are sometimes very large and they're carnivorous and they do bite sometimes. And they do have sharp claws and they're hard to train, like I said before, and they're extremely intelligent and they need a ton of space. Definitely not a good pet choice for most people. And better choices include like bearded dragons, leopard geckos, and blue-tongued skinks, and maybe even crested geckos. Some of those smaller guys that are a lot more handleable and at least manageable. Don't get a monitor. But if you happen to be a reptile expert or some kind of zoo and you happen to find a rescue monitor, I recommend rescuing over shopping because it does happen so very often. Just like you just happen to fall into our lap, do you know? That literally is pretty much what happened to me with this animal. I got a phone call and it was like, yes or no, take the lizard, yes or no. And I said, oh my gosh, let me think about it and I'll call you right back. I try not to do it on impulse, you know, but sometimes it just happens and you have to make a choice. Otherwise the animal may not get a home, and that's just the reality of it, you know. So that's why places like us exist once in a while. So this is Dino the Savannah Monitor. Please let me know if you guys have any questions. You're being an awfully polite and quiet audience tonight, but I do understand you have a life outside of once in a while. Look at these beautiful eyes. They're so human-like. Very amber colored in the species. Very, very smart. Like I said, always thinking about something. Reminds me of a velociraptor, although they're not really related to dinosaurs, are they? Even though we named this one Dino, which I find so funny. I just thought it was a cute name, right? Reminds me of a dinosaur. They're not really dinosaurs. Birds are more closely related to dinosaurs. So what if we meet a bird next? Would you guys like to meet a bird? Once again, the Savannah Monitor, another very important animal. And now that Dino is being awfully calm, I think this is a great time to reward this animal for being so calm. You've been very good. I want to tell you that to your face. I think you understand me. And you can go down and rest while we prepare to get our next animal out to teach you guys about birds next. How about that? Bye, Dino. Have a little nap. It is time for bed. And like I said, this is a diurnal species, which means they go to sleep in the nighttime like most humans. I happen to be kind of a nocturnal human, but mostly by choice, not by, I can't do that lately because I have to work. Right? If I wasn't working, I would have different choices I can make. But anyway, so they're a diurnal species. The spider is more of an opportunistic, not really diurnal, not really nocturnal. Diurnal means daytime, nocturnal means nighttime, as you guys might know. That is a definitely strictly diurnal lizard that we just met. So they go straight to bed as soon as the sun goes down. So the next animal, I'm going to have to let you guys have some patience with me because it takes me a couple of maybe a minute or two to actually retrieve this animal. So on most of our platforms right now, I'm actually going to pause. On Instagram, I can't pause the screen, but I want you guys to just bear with me. Please do not leave. It's going to be very worth your wait and while, I promise. This is actually one of our newest animals that came into the zoo in November. It is now almost January. Happy New Year to us. I cannot wait for this year to be over. It has been crazy. But anyway, the next animal is going to be a beautiful and large bird. So please stay tuned. I will be right back with the bird in just a moment, you guys. Hang tight. I'll be right back. Okay, you guys, thank you for being patient. It's Rango, the Eurasian Eagle Owl, up next. Sorry, it takes me a minute to step him up and get him all ready to see you guys. He hangs out in his travel crate, and then he comes out to see you guys, but it just takes a hot second to retrieve a bird of prey. He does have his food still in his mouth. So this is Rango, the Eurasian Eagle Owl. Now, we just met a diurnal lizard, but now we're meeting a nocturnal bird, right? And most people are aware that most owls are nocturnal or night animals. I like to call them a creature of the night, right? And creatures of the night do much better in the nighttime, and they are well adapted to hunting and being awake at night. Now, this is the time of night that he will start coming alive. Here in South Texas, it is 7:30 or 7:32, if you want to be exact. And this is about when he would start really waking up. So I'm sure he's going to be kind of lively tonight. He does have a piece of food in his mouth still. He's kind of blitzed. I got a piece of food in my mouth. So these guys are a Eurasian Eagle Owl. So they are from Europe and Asia, right? And also North Africa. That is where they come from in the wild. And Rango here is 7 years old. You gonna eat that piece of food? Yum. Did you forget it was in your mouth? Owls are very silly sometimes, and they forget they have food in their mouth. He's got a little rat leg with him. Come on, buddy. Shall we start over? Sometimes you have to like help him. Since he's a hand-raised bird, he has to be hand-fed. Here you go. Yum. There we go. Down the hatch. Sometimes owls or birds of prey get a piece of food in their mouth and they get distracted and they just hold it there. It's super silly. So again, a European and Asian and North African species. And these guys are, of course, a bird of prey. That means that they eat meat. You just saw him eating a piece of meat. You know, the little rat leg. Yum. These guys can hunt rodents, rabbits, and even larger mammals and larger birds as well. The largest they can hunt are small pigs and small deer. And they sometimes will hunt other raptors, so like hawks and other owls as well. And they're pretty capable hunters, and they're very strong for their size. Now, he is actually one of the largest species of owl in the entire world, but he happens to be a male. That means he's half the size of a female owl. And that is all the owls are like that, by the way. All the owls, females are bigger. And the reason for that is that females typically handle the nesting duties while the males, the fathers, will actually hunt for his entire family. And that is going to make it easier for him to hunt if he's lighter weight, right? He's more athletic, he's lighter, he can hunt every night if they need to feed his entire family of up to, I think they can have up to 5 babies, but it's typically 2 to 3 babies. And mom will kind of like guard the nest. It's still a very, very important job, and she's very strong and very big. Now, he does look very large, but guess what? He doesn't weigh very much. Thank goodness for me, because I'm holding him. I am holding him on a glove, but I still have to hold him with my strength, which isn't very much. I'm not very strong. I might look strong, but I'm really not. Maybe mentally, but physically, not so much. But he only weighs about 3.5 to 4 pounds. He actually weighs, today we weighed him, he was 1.64 kilograms, which is, you know, on average, they weigh anywhere from 3 to 4 pounds as a male. On a fat day, they might weigh 5 pounds if they had a big meal or something like that, which they can sometimes gorge food and weigh more. That goes for any animal, right? Even human. But the females weigh about twice as much. So anywhere from 7 to up to 9.5 pounds. A gravid or pregnant female can weigh up to 10 pounds. Isn't that amazing? But they don't really look that small, right? They look a lot larger than that if you just like take a look at it. If he were a mammal of this size, he might weigh 15, even 20 pounds. But since he's a flying bird, he's got to be lightweight, and he needs feathers to fly, and feathers keep him lightweight. And his semi-hollow bones keep him lighter than our bones would be. Our bones as mammals are very, very dense because we don't fly. He also has less internal organs than a mammal would. So he doesn't have like an appendix, for example, because he doesn't need one. Nobody needs one. We don't really know what that's for. If you're a doctor and you know what an appendix is for, please tell me. He's like, I don't know either. He also has no bladder, no true bladder. They don't really hold on to water weight at all. That's just extra weight for no reason. Their urine is typically very, very sparse. Amanda, you can't talk. Scarce, sparse, and minimal. And their urates are typically more solid than urine is, right? And also when they gotta go, they gotta go. They don't hold on to water weight. They just let it go. So they can actually be lighter weight. If you ever pay attention to birds like on a power line or in a tree, they actually will usually use the restroom before they fly because that's just a little less weight for them to take off and carry around. Birds also have, what else? Oh, no teeth, of course. No teeth in their head at all. Teeth are actually very heavy in a head of a mammal. They don't have teeth. They have, or a reptile, right? They actually have a beak instead of teeth, and their beak is very, very lightweight, also porous on the inside too. Now, their bones are semi-hollow. They're called pneumatic, and pneumatic bones are basically not really like a straw that's hollow. They're more like a straw with a sponge inside of it. So imagine a sponge that's also a bone. And that's what their bones kind of look like in a cross section, or if you break one or something like that and you look at it, a bird's bone. And if you ever have like eaten chicken, their bones are very, very, he's eating chicken. He's about to eat another piece of chicken right now. You want a piece? Yum, little chicken leg for you. If you've eaten chicken or quail or any type of bird, turkey, you'll notice that their bones are very brittle and a lot more lightweight than like a mammal. So if you've eaten like a T-bone steak, that's a bigger bone, right? So that helps them to stay very light. So that's why he looks so much bigger than he actually is. Most of what you see is feathers. Owls actually do have very tiny bodies underneath all these feathers. And owls have very fluffy, loose, and soft, and even frayed feathers. And that helps them not only to thermoregulate, because this is a species that lives in snow, lives in sun, spring, summer, fall, winter, all the things. And they live in like Russia and places like that. So you'll notice that he's covered in these fluffy feathers to be able to stay warm and also to be able to stay cool. It's thermoregulation. But also he has feathers even on his feet. His feet are feathery. And if he blinks, you'll see he has feathers on his eyelids as well. Isn't that amazing? Very few owl species have feathers on their eyelids. So they can actually keep their eyes nice and warm if they just shut their eyes in a snowstorm, etc. They can also choose to take shelter into a hollow tree cavity if they can find one. But this species of owl is so big, they don't often find a hollow cavity of any kind, a cave maybe, or something like that, or maybe even an abandoned building. Barn owls do that a lot, right? That would keep them sheltered. But most of the time, they're just going to kind of sit in the tree and be between the leaves and deal with it. with their feathery bodies, but they're very well adapted to cold weather. So he's going to be just fine this winter here in Texas. He did come to us from a raptor center in Kansas, which is a couple states north of us, right? We got Texas, which is like 5 states in one, and then we've got Oklahoma and Kansas. So they have even colder weather than we do in the winter. So he'll be fine over here. But anyway, their feathers don't only keep them thermoregulated, like I said, they also keep them quiet. So when these guys flap their wings, they might blow things around like leaves and things, but their wings themselves do not make noise. They are nearly silent when they fly. And that's a great way to stay hidden from your food. Because remember, these guys are birds of prey. They eat animals like mammals and other birds that are maybe actively trying to get away. And if you are making lots of noise, you better be super fast like a falcon or a hawk, or you better be quiet like an owl. Owls are not fast, but they don't need to be fast as a creature of the night that's quiet, right? Right, buddy? You see your crate over there? He's going to take a restroom break. Yes, he is. Does that help you to feel a little bit lighter weight? Feel better? So he might be looking at his crate over there. Please don't be alarmed if he decides to try to fly. He is attached to me, so he'll be fine. He'll just come right back. But owls sometimes forget they're attached. So please don't be alarmed if he decides to do that. He will be okay. I will make sure that he comes right back, and you'll be able to see him again. Now, they are quiet when they fly, and they're also a nighttime animal. This species of owl is anyway. Not every owl species is nocturnal. Some species of owl, like the burrowing owl, are actually diurnal. They'll be active during the day as well. Now, I do have a question down below from Kathleen. Kathleen asks, "Hi, Kathleen. Nice to see you this evening. Why do owls have ear feathers?" So those little ear tufts that you see on the sides of his head right now, which look kind of like puppy dog ears right now, those are for self-expression and communication. And also, there are some people that think that they're actually for camouflage as well. You can see that his feathers aren't only soft, frayed, loose, and everything like that to keep him thermoregulated and quiet when he flies. They're also very well camouflaged for this species. Some species of owl are white, like the barn owl, so they don't hide as well. Barn owls like to be inside of a tree cavity or inside of a building, etc. These guys can sit in a tree and still be very well camouflaged, and most owl species are like that. When they're hunting especially, you won't really see them at all because they have camouflage colors and patterns. But the ear tufts can also function as, like I said, self-expression, kind of like your eyebrows, or like the crest of a cockatoo or cockatiel, right? But they can also function as a little bit of camouflage. Have you ever seen a bobcat? Bobcats have little ear tufts on top of their true ears, and that will help to hide their silhouette in a natural setting like grass. Ear tufts on a owl can theoretically also give them a little bit more of a broken line to their body and look like maybe a natural pattern, like a tree. That can help them as well. But mostly they're for self-expression and communication. So they can go all the way up when he's doing his mating behavior, his courtship behavior, I should say, not really mating. But when he hoots at night, his ear tufts will come up because he's very alert and very happy about that. When they hoot, they're usually looking for mates, and he hoots a lot, so he must be looking for love. Sorry, buddy, you're not a local species. You might hear some great horned owls hooting back at you because that's a very similar species. But his ear tufts are certainly up when he does that. Owls are fascinating. Just like every bird of prey, they do have ways of hunting, right? Let's talk about the owl senses. We talked about the lizard senses and the tarantula senses. I was going to say spider, but she's a tarantula and a spider. Anyway, tarantulas sense with their hairs or their chitin, right? Their urticating hairs. They will sense movement, touch, and a little bit of smell. These guys have no sense of smell. So out of the 3 animals, this one has no sense of smell. Some owls here in the Americas actually hunt skunks. And some owls in Europe, like you, will eat stinky animals like weasels and things like that. But of course, skunks have an amazing superpower of staying safe by spraying their anal glands at other animals and deterring enemies that way. These guys have no sense of smell that's known at all. So some birds do. Some birds have a slight sense of smell. Some birds actually have an amazing sense of smell, like some vultures will smell from miles and miles away. The turkey vulture actually has the best sense of smell known to humans that ever existed. So there are exceptions, but most birds don't smell very well. Owls don't smell very well at all. Not that we know of, they don't smell at all. So no sense of smell for him, especially for hunting, but he does have amazing eyesight and amazing hearing. Now, his ears are not the ear tufts. His ears are actually under the feathers. Yes, they are, and they're on the sides of his head, but the ears are actually crooked. One is up high and one is down low, and that's actually going to function for triangulation of sound. Have you ever seen an owl? bob their head around. He does it all the time when he's listening for something, or when I talk to him in the morning, or whenever I go out to feed him or something like that. He'll start bobbing his head around because he's listening to my voice and he's listening to my footsteps and he's trying to figure out if I'm close by so that I can feed him some food already, right? Getting impatient. But that is how they listen, how they figure out where sounds are coming from, right, buddy? And they also see very well. His eyes are so large that they don't move in socket, and they have to move their head around a lot to look around. You'll see him moving his head a lot. Birds of prey are all like that because their eyes are so big they don't move in socket. That goes for eagles, hawks, falcons, all the birds of prey. Owls especially have the biggest eyes compared to their head. If we had eyes as big as his, by comparison, we would have eyes the size of grapefruits. That would be amazing and very weird. But that's why they're kind of like alien-like, right? But that's why they move their heads so much, because their eyes actually do not move at all. They have to have a very flexible neck. An owl can turn their head 270 degrees out of 360. It's not all the way around, but it's very far, a lot more further than us. And that's in order for them to see around. Can you guys see its blinking eyelids? He has a third eyelid as well, called a nictitating membrane, that helps to clean his eye and protect the eye, especially when they're grabbing prey. Now, when they see or hear the food, usually a combo of both, in the dark, by the way, they can see as far as across a football field in the dark, as long as there's just a tad of light, like a candle or two, or the moon or stars is plenty. They can see across that football field, and they can see so clearly, if they could read the fine print of a penny on the other side of a football field. That's incredible. They have even better hearing. They can hear a mouse's heartbeat across the same football field under 6 feet in the ground. That is amazing. Aren't they incredible? They're one of my favorite animals. He's looking around at everything in here and listening to me, I'm sure, and getting really tired of me talking. But that is how they hunt, you guys, and they're amazing hunters. Now, these guys don't typically hunt mice, although they can eat mice. These guys hunt larger prey like rats, rabbits, small deer, and small pigs, and everything in between. And they're experts at hunting hawks and eagles sometimes, if they're a smaller eagle species, I guess. I shouldn't say experts at hunting eagles, because eagles are a little bit too big for them, unless it's a baby eagle, I guess. But they can hunt chicks of other birds of prey from the nest in the night, and they wouldn't even hear them coming or know what happened. Isn't that brutal? Kind of hardcore. Would you like another snack? I'm more than happy to feed you another snack, because you're getting a little bit impatient, I can tell. Here you go. So sometimes you got to keep your animals wanting to stay with you, right? Or else he gets bored, and he might try to leave. We can't have that. You're still on for the people. Yeah, owls are incredible, you guys. This type of owl does prefer to eat every single night. Not every predator is like that, and not every bird of prey is like that. If they have a stormy night, they usually will not hunt, and they'll fast that night. And then the next day, they will actually hunt a lot more, or at least some. So what's really fun, if you're looking for birds of prey in your area, wait for a stormy day or a nasty day outside, rainy, and then the next day, you'll see a lot of birds of prey hunting. Isn't that fun? Well, you guys, it's been so much fun. I feel like I'm forgetting to talk about something. His wingspan is about 5.5 feet. Females would be about 6 to 6.5 feet. They're just amazing, big, beautiful birds. But I don't want to keep him out here too long, because it's getting a little bit late, and I'm sure he's ready to go back home and fly around in his enclosure. He is attached to me with equipment here, which is falconry equipment that's been used on birds for thousands of years. Doesn't hurt them at all. But he wears little leather anklets and has leather jesses and a leash to keep him safe with me and not flying around the room like a weirdo. Plus, he's a bird of prey, so if he landed back on me with his talons in the wrong place, I would be injured as well. So this keeps them safe, keeps me safe, all the above. There's also a lot of equipment in here you cannot be landing on. That would not be safe for you or us in general. But whenever he goes back home, he gets to take all of it off, be naked and free, and fly around and enjoy his life. He is actually not an injured or rehabilitated bird, which is very rare to see in captivity, actually. He is actually a hand-raised Eurasian Eagle Owl from other continents, right? So we're happy to have him. He was raised with the intent for education about owls and birds of prey. We love him very much. And with that, I'm actually going to take a swift break and put him back, and I'll come right back to see if you guys have any other further questions. I hope you enjoyed our owl, our lizard friend, and our spider friend as well. Hope it didn't scare too many of you. And I'll be right back again. we're back. Thank you so much for having patience with me as I retrieve the owl and then set the owl back into his travel enclosure. It's been a really fun evening with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the animal encounter that you got and the one human that you got to talk to as well. Please let me know if you have any questions whatsoever. Feel free to contact us on social media or at our number or website down below. There's always a link down below in the description if you guys want to help us out with donations or sponsorships. We also have Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal if you guys want to tip for anything that you like that you saw here today. Or you can even schedule your own animal encounter, the very best way to help us out because you get something in return as well. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next time here on Once in a Wild Wednesday, you guys. See you next week.
We are nothing close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing once in a while. Together. Once in a while. I wanna hear you say once in a while. That's the fun for me and you.
Once again, we'll see everybody next week. We hope you have a safe and wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye!